For most of its history, humanity believed the universe was empty, not dead, not hostile, just silent. The stars burned, galaxies spun, nebulae bloomed like frozen storms of light, and no one answered back. Humanity listened anyway. They listened with radio telescopes the size of cities. They listened with probes launched into the dark, carrying golden records and hopeful mathematics. They listened across generations, whispering the same question into the void. Is anyone out there? For thousands of years, the universe said nothing. That silence shaped humanity. It made them curious. It made them cautious. And eventually it made them bold. When faster-than-light travel was finally achieved, humanity celebrated not with conquest, but with caution. Exploratory vessels were sent slowly, carefully, every jump mapped, every system scanned. Still, nothing. No ruins. No signals. No civilizations. The universe appeared vast and empty. Then, on a bright Tuesday morning in the year 2147, the silence ended. It did not break gently. Across Earth's sky, above oceans, above capitals, above cities that had never known darkness during the day, shadows appeared. Not clouds, not storms. Ships, massive, impossible, each one larger than mountains, hanging motionless in the sky, as if gravity itself had decided to obey something else. The sun vanished behind alloy and energy fields. Traffic stopped. Markets froze. Entire continents looked upward at the same time. Humanity's first reaction was not panic. It was hope. Every government on Earth activated first contact protocols that had been rehearsed for centuries. Signals were broadcast in every known language. Mathematical sequences, visual symbols, universal constants, peaceful greetings, declarations of non-hostility, open hands extended to the stars. For 6 minutes, there was no reply. Then the reply came. Plasma fire carved lines of white heat through the upper atmosphere. Military installations vanished in pillars of light. Communication arrays were erased before warnings could spread. Orbital defenses failed so completely they barely registered as targets. The silence had not been empty. It had been watching. The Galactic Concord had ruled the stars for 40,000 years. 12 elder species, ancient beyond human comprehension, had long ago decided that chaos was inefficient. They brought order to the galaxy through conquest, classification, and control. Every system cataloged, every species evaluated, every useful civilization absorbed. The Concord did not hate younger species. Hate required effort. They simply believed that order required hierarchy, and that hierarchy required obedience. Earth had been evaluated centuries earlier. Primitive propulsion, fragmented governance, nuclear weapons that barely scratch modern shields. A species still arguing among itself while pretending to dream of the stars. Grand Arbiter Theon of the Valkyrie watched Earth's subjugation from the command deck of his flagship. His species had ruled longer than human civilization had existed, for eyes arranged in a diamond pattern surveyed the planet below with detached interest. Copper-colored skin bore ceremonial markings, earned from centuries of successful dominion. "Report," he said calmly. "The native species is resisting," his tactical officer replied. "Chemical propulsion weapons. Fission-based warheads." Theon emitted a sound that approximated amusement. "Nuclear weapons," he said. "How charming." The order was given without emotion. Continue suppression. Humanity fought, not because they believed they could win, but because surrender felt worse. Jets screamed upward, vaporized before pilots understood what they faced. Armored divisions rolled through cities that no longer had skies. Missiles burned trails of fire into shields that rippled once and held. Entire navies were erased before crews could transmit final messages. Still humans fought, in mountains, in forests, in the ruins of cities already marked for dismantling. Small groups resisted long after logic said they should stop. Ambushes were launched. Traps were set. Lives were spent for seconds of defiance. The Concord found it mildly interesting. "They are persistent," Commander Vexel noted. "Like insects," Theon replied. All young species believe willpower can change outcomes. By the end of the third day, organized resistance ended. Every human still holding a weapon was dead. The rest were processed. Efficiently, each human scanned, cataloged, assigned a designation. Metal tags placed around their necks. Records of age, health, skill sets, reproductive potential. The Concord valued efficiency. Humans reproduced quickly. That made them useful. Earth was divided among the 12 species like an accounting exercise. Territories claimed, resources allocated, populations assigned. Then the work began. Humans mined asteroids their masters considered dangerous. They built stations they would never command. They cleaned corridors that would never belong to them. Food was sufficient. Sleep was minimal. Hope was discouraged. And yet, humanity adapted. They always did. They learned new languages. They learned schedules. They learned which overseers noticed too much and which noticed nothing at all. They learned how to survive invisibly. Grand Arbiter Theon was promoted for Earth's successful pacification. His reports showed excellent productivity and declining resistance. Humans are ideal labor, his analysts told him. Intelligent enough to be useful. Emotional enough to be controlled. Theon approved increased quotas. Time passed. Years. Decades. Children were born who never knew freedom. They learned to work before they learned to dream. They learned obedience before language. The Concord believed this was the end of the story. They were wrong, because while humanity appeared broken, they were listening, and they never forgot the silence that came before the stars spoke back. The Concord did not notice when the resistance began. That was not arrogance. It was design. For 40,000 years, the Galactic Concord had survived by perfecting one simple principle. Threats announced themselves. Rebellions were loud. Insurrections were chaotic. Species that challenged authority did so openly, driven by pride, desperation, or misplaced courage. Those species were easy to crush. Humanity did not make that mistake. When the warships left Earth's sky and the processing began, most humans learned the same lesson very quickly. Visibility was death. The ones who survived were not the strongest, not the loudest, not the most defiant. They were the ones who became background noise. Workers who did their tasks well enough to avoid attention, but not well enough to earn scrutiny. They did not protest. They did not organize. They did not look like a threat. And so the Concord dismissed them. Maya Chin was 12 years old when she entered the mines beneath Europa's frozen crust. Her body was small enough to crawl through access tunnels designed for maintenance drones. Her hands were steady. Her eyes learned quickly where to look and where not to. Her father had died in the invasion. Her mother worked 16 hours a day sorting mineral slurries for off-world transport. At night, she spoke only in whispers. Stories passed carefully between exhaustion and fear. "Your father fought," she told Maya once. "That's why he died." Maya remembered that sentence more clearly than any lesson she ever learned. Fighting was loud. Survival was quiet. So Maya became quiet. She worked. She listened. She watched. And she remembered. The Concord's oversight systems were vast, but they were not thorough. Automated monitors tracked productivity, not curiosity. Surveillance algorithms searched for patterns of resistance, not patterns of learning. Overseers watched for sabotage, not attention. Humans were assumed incapable of strategic patience. That assumption was fatal. Maya learned alien languages by pretending not to understand them. She listened to Valkyrie engineers argue over shield harmonics. She watched third technicians adjust power couplings without realizing someone was memorizing every motion. No one stopped her. She was invisible. Across Concord space, others were doing the same. A sanitation worker in an orbital habitat memorized access codes while polishing walls no one else cared about. A factory laborer learned weapon tolerances by repairing damaged plasma conduits under supervision. A domestic servant listened to political conversations while serving meals to beings who never looked down. None of them shared information. Not yet, because sharing was dangerous. The first generation of survivors did not build networks. They built memories. The Concord categorized humans as emotionally driven, short-lived, and individually insignificant. Their analysts believed time would do the rest. Anger would fade, identities would dissolve, and obedience would become instinct. Instead, something else happened. Human children grew up inside alien systems. They learned alien logic, alien efficiency, alien blind spots. They learned how Concord technology worked, and more importantly, how it failed. And still, they did nothing. The first whispered contact came 20 years after the invasion. Not a message, not a signal, a question. Maya was 23 when it happened. 12 bodies slept in her assigned quarters when a hand touched her shoulder in the dark. Don't move, a voice whispered. Don't speak. Her heart pounded, but she stayed still. We've been watching you, the voice continued. You notice things. Maya swallowed. That's dangerous. Yes, the voice agreed. That's why we need you. Need me for what? There was a pause. To remember. The hand withdrew. By the time Maya turned, the room was empty. For weeks, she told herself it wasn't real. Stress, fatigue, imagination. Then she noticed changes. A worker who moved with control precision instead of exhaustion. A maintenance hatch scratched with symbols that weren't random. A rhythm tapped into pipes that repeated every 6 cycles. Patterns. The resistance was not recruiting fighters. It was recruiting observers. The Concord still saw nothing. Productivity remained high. Compliance remained stable. No weapons were found. No attacks recorded. What they failed to understand was that the resistance was not doing anything. It was learning. Information moved slowly at first, passed through casual remarks, shared mistakes, forgotten manuals that were not forgotten at all. Every human learned only a fragment. No one saw the whole picture. That was intentional. Amara Okonkwo had once been a professor of engineering on Earth. Now she cleaned filtration units on a mining station orbiting Saturn. To the Concord, she was a line item, replaceable, efficient. To the resistance, she was something else, a compiler. She didn't design weapons. She assembled understanding. Reports came to her in pieces. Half-remembered specifications, stolen schematics, offhand remarks overheard during repairs. Alone, they meant nothing. Together, they revealed patterns, shield frequencies that repeated, fuel dependencies no one documented, maintenance cycles that assumed obedience, weaknesses. When do we act? Someone asked during a rare gathering deep beneath Europa's ice. Amara didn't answer immediately, because the wrong answer would kill them all. When we can't be stopped, she said finally. Not before. The resistance did not measure time in days or years. They measured it in readiness. By the time the Concord began noticing anomalies, it was already too late. Small errors, minor delays, equipment that failed more often than expected, data inconsistencies that couldn't be explained. Nothing alarming, nothing worth escalation. The Concord had ruled for 40 millennia. They did not panic over statistics. What they never understood was that humans weren't preparing for rebellion. They were preparing for certainty. A moment when acting early would be worse than waiting. A moment when silence would be louder than violence. And across Concord space, in mines and factories, in sleeping quarters packed with exhausted bodies, humans learned the most dangerous skill of all, how to disappear in plain sight. The first test of the network was never meant to be noticed. That was the rule. If the Concord noticed, it meant failure. For 70 years, the resistance had grown like a shadow, thin, quiet, stretched across systems that were never meant to be connected by a conquered species. But shadows still had to learn whether they could move without being seen. So they sent a signal, not a message, not a transmission, a question. It began as a routine maintenance anomaly in the outer Valkyrie sector. A human technician, assigned to repair a secondary relay node, introduced a delay, barely measurable, less than a microsecond, into a subspace synchronization cycle. It did not disrupt operations. It did not trigger alarms. To the Concord, it was noise. To the resistance, it was a whisper. The relay did not forward confirmation ping to its paired node. Instead, it paused. Elsewhere, in a mining station orbiting a dead moon, another relay, altered months earlier by a different human, was waiting for that pause. When it detected the delay, it responded with its own. No energy spike, no identifiable pattern, nothing that Concord monitoring software was designed to flag. The signal traveled exactly 3 systems. And then it stopped, on purpose. Maya Chin was watching when it happened. She sat in a cramped service bay beneath Europa's ice, her hands resting on a terminal she wasn't officially trained to use. The display showed nothing but routine system diagnostics. But Maya knew where to look. The pause registered. 3 systems away. Her breath caught. "It worked," she whispered. The signal had gone out, and no one had noticed. They waited. Hours passed. Then days. The Concorde did not respond. No investigations. No audits. No changes in patrol patterns. That silence was louder than any confirmation. It meant the Concorde had not even realized a question had been asked. The second signal went farther. This time it wasn't a relay. It was a logistics error. A fuel shipment, minor, low priority, was rerouted through an alternate processing station. The reroute request passed through 3 automated approval layers, each one overseen by a different species. Every layer assumed the previous one had validated it. The shipment arrived 12 hours late. No one cared. But the delay carried information, encoded not in data, but in timing. A human dock worker noticed a discrepancy and adjusted a counter on a loading manifest. That adjustment triggered a secondary diagnostic routine on a shipyard 2 systems away. The routine reported nothing, but its absence was a reply. Amara Okonkwo received the compiled data 6 weeks later. She stared at the pattern emerging across her hidden terminal. "They're blind," she said quietly. Someone beside her exhaled. "Or they don't care." Amara shook her head. "No, they're blind because they don't care." The Concorde's greatest strength scale was becoming its weakness. Their systems assumed obedience. Their oversight assumed inevitability. Their empire had grown so vast that anything not immediately dangerous ceased to exist, and humans had become experts at not being immediately dangerous. The third signal was riskier. It involved people. On a processing world near the Moldok frontier, a group of human workers failed to report for a shift. Not all at once. One here, one there, across different facilities. Each absence was explained. Injury, exhaustion, equipment delay. But when plotted together, the pattern formed a map. The workers weren't disappearing. They were moving, quietly, carefully, toward places the Concorde no longer actively monitored. Old mining tunnels, decommissioned storage nodes, abandoned orbital platforms, places forgotten by a civilization that replaced infrastructure instead of maintaining it. The Concorde logged the workforce fluctuations and moved on. The Resistance logged something else. Mobility. Commander-level Concorde analysts finally noticed the anomaly 6 months later, not because of concern, because of inefficiency. Human output variance is increasing, one report noted, still within acceptable parameters. Another analyst suggested increased oversight. The recommendation was denied. Increased oversight cost resources. Resources were better spent elsewhere. The signals had gone nowhere, exactly as planned. The Resistance learned something critical during that first year of testing. They were not just invisible. They were incomprehensible. Concorde systems were designed to detect threats that looked like threats. Energy spikes, mass movements, weapon signatures, command hierarchies. The Resistance had none of these. It was not centralized. It did not communicate directly. It did not move quickly. It did not escalate. It asked questions so small they blended into background noise. And the Concorde, accustomed to enemies that shouted, could not hear whispers. Maya met Amara in person for the first time shortly after the third signal cycle. The meeting place was beneath a coolant reservoir, surrounded by machinery so loud that conversation was impossible without close proximity. "You did well," Amara said. Maya shook her head. "We didn't do anything." Amara smiled thinly. "Exactly." Maya hesitated. What happens if they notice? Amara's expression darkened. Then we disappear again, she said. And wait longer. How long? As long as it takes. Maya looked around at the rusted walls, the cold metal, the endless machinery built by hands that never benefited from it. People are dying while we wait. Amara nodded. I know. But if we move too early, she continued, everyone dies. The signals continued. Small, controlled, carefully limited. Each one tested a different layer of Concord infrastructure. Communications, logistics, power distribution, command response. The results were always the same. Nothing happened. And that nothing terrified the humans who understood what it meant. In the third year of testing, the Resistance sent its most dangerous signal yet. They stopped responding. Across 12 systems, human workers ceased all non-essential communication for exactly 6 minutes. No messages, no acknowledgments, no complaints. Just silence. Concord monitoring systems flagged the event as a synchronization glitch. It was logged, archived, ignored. 6 minutes passed. The humans resumed normal operations. The Concord never realized that 6 minutes was enough time to coordinate actions across half a sector. Enough time to confirm that the network could move as one. Amara closed the file and leaned back. They won't see us until it's too late, she said. Someone asked a question everyone was thinking. When do we stop testing? Amara didn't answer immediately. She thought of the generations born into chains, of children who had never seen the sky, of the thing they were building in places the Concord had forgotten existed. When the signal doesn't need to come back, she said finally, when it doesn't need to go anywhere. Far above, in chambers of crystal and gold, the rulers of the Concord reviewed reports that told them everything was under control. Human productivity remained acceptable. Resistance remained negligible. The Empire endured. They did not know that their systems were already compromised. They did not know that their silence had been interpreted. They did not know that an entire species had learned how to speak without making a sound. And they did not know that one day soon, the signals would stop going nowhere. They would go everywhere. The Concord was very proud of its scanners. They had sensors that could detect energy fluctuations across entire systems, instruments that could map gravitational distortions down to the subatomic level, arrays that could identify a warship before it exited hyperspace. They believed nothing large could be built without being seen. They were wrong, because the most dangerous thing humanity ever created did not look like a weapon at all. The first construction site was not a shipyard. It was a waste facility. An abandoned processing station drifting in a decaying orbit around a red dwarf star, written off centuries earlier when its output fell below profitability thresholds. The Concord had sealed it, archived the coordinates, and never looked back. To them, it was trash. To humanity, it was perfect. No traffic, no patrols, no reason for anyone to care. The station was officially dead. Unofficially, it came back to life one human at a time. The workers arrived disguised as maintenance transfers, cleanup crews, or statistical errors. A janitor reassigned here, a miner rerouted there, a technician whose paperwork had been lost. No ship ever carried more than a handful of them. No manifest ever raised suspicion. Inside the station, the lights were dim, power rerouted through ancient conduits that barely worked. Air recyclers groaned under loads they were never meant to carry. And yet, the humans smiled, because this place was theirs. Amara Okonkwo stood in the central chamber, staring at a skeletal framework suspended in zero gravity. It was enormous, not in mass. In intent, it doesn't look like anything, one of the engineers said. That's the point, Amara replied. The Concord categorized threats visually. Armor, weapons arrays, shield emitters, aggressive geometry. This structure had none of that. It looked like industrial scaffolding. Support trusses, cooling vanes, power routing spines. Any Concord skin would classify it as infrastructure, not a warship, not a weapon, just machinery. The early designs had failed. Human engineers tried to replicate Concord weapons at first, plasma cannons energy lances, missile systems. Every attempt ran into the same wall. The Concorde was better at those things. Older, more refined, more powerful. Humanity could never outgun them at their own game, so they stopped trying. Instead, they asked a different question. What does the Concorde assume will never be used against them? The answer came from a former astrophysicist named Raj Patel. He had spent his life cleaning sensor arrays, calibrating instruments that studied cosmic phenomena the Concorde found academically interesting but strategically useless. Gravity waves, dark matter flux, space-time shear, things you observed, not things you weaponized. Their ships aren't built to resist gravity, Raj said during a whispered meeting. They manipulate for propulsion, yes, but only within narrow tolerances. Amara leaned forward. Meaning if you apply gravity incorrectly, he said slowly, their ships don't explode. What happens? They collapse. That was when the design changed. The structure in the abandoned station was not a gun. It was not a cannon. It was a field generator. A device that didn't fire projectiles or energy beams. It simply adjusted reality. Just enough. The first prototype was small, barely functional. They tested it on debris, a chunk of metal, spinning slowly in vacuum. The generator activated. Space around the object twisted. The metal didn't shatter. It folded, compressed inward, crushed by forces that didn't care about armor or density. When the field shut down, the object was gone, not destroyed. Reduced to something smaller than dust. Silence filled the chamber. Someone laughed, breathless and terrified. Someone else whispered, "They have no defense against this." Amara said nothing. She was thinking of scale. Building it was agony. The materials had to be sourced from across Concorde space. Components stolen in fragments, so small they looked like inventory errors. Exotic alloys mislabeled as scrap. Power cores disguised as industrial backups. Every piece arrived separately. Every assembly step was spread across months. Nothing that looked like a weapon was ever completed in one place. The Concorde scanned everything. They just didn't know what to look for. Maya Chen visited the station once. She stood at the edge of the chamber, staring at the growing structure. "This is what we waited for?" she asked quietly. "It's not finished," Amara said. Maya swallowed. "Will it work?" Amara looked at her. "Yes," she said, "and that's what scares me." The Concorde never noticed the power draw. The generator siphoned energy slowly, imperceptibly, spread across a dozen systems, each fluctuation within acceptable margins. No alarms, no audits, no investigations. The weapon that wasn't a weapon grew quietly in the dark. Years passed. The structure expanded. More frameworks were built elsewhere, not copies, variations. Each one adapted to local resources, built with lessons learned from the last. Humanity did not mass-produce. They evolved. When Admiral Yuki Tanaka finally stood on the completed bridge, she felt something she hadn't felt in decades. Awe. The Spite of Terra did not look like a Concorde warship. It looked wrong. Too smooth in places, too angular in others. Its surface absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Sensors slid off it like rain. "This ship shouldn't exist," her first officer said. Yuki nodded. "Neither should we." The Concorde still didn't see it. Their scanner swept empty space and reported nothing, because technically there was nothing. No emissions, no aggressive signatures, no detectable threat. Just a region of space that behaved slightly differently than expected. And the Concorde had stopped questioning expectations a long time ago. The first time the weapon was fired, it was not during a battle. It was a test. A single unmanned patrol ship at the edge of Concorde territory. The generator activated. Space bent. The patrol ship vanished. No explosion. No distress signal. No debris. It simply ceased. The Concorde logged the loss as a navigational error. Amara closed the report and exhaled. "It works," someone said. "Yes," she replied. "And now?" Amara looked at the growing map of hidden shipyards, silent fleets, and waiting people. "Now," She said, "We finished building something they can't ignore." Far away, in chambers of crystal and gold, the rulers of the Concord reviewed reports that showed no threats, no rebellion, no danger. Human productivity remained high. Order remained intact. The galaxy was quiet. They did not know that gravity itself had been turned against them. They did not know that the first human weapon did not fire. It decided, and soon, it would decide that the age of empires was over. The galaxy did not explode. That was what surprised them the most. When humanity finally struck, there were no stars going nova, no planets burning, no shockwaves tearing through space. There was no grand declaration, no warning broadcast, no dramatic opening move. There was only a pause, a hesitation so small that most of the Concord never noticed it. And then things started disappearing. The first loss was a border patrol in the outer Valkyrie Reach, a routine assignment. One cruiser, standard sensors, veteran crew. Its last transmission was ordinary, status green. Patrol continuing, nothing unusual detected. Then silence. No distress call, no debris field, no energy spike. The ship simply failed to exist. Concord Command logged the event as a sensor malfunction and reassigned the patrol route. They were used to small losses. The galaxy was dangerous. The second disappearance happened 12 minutes later. A logistics escort near a Modoc mining corridor vanished mid-burn. The escort ship's engines cut out halfway through a jump, leaving behind a brief distortion in space-time that Concord instruments couldn't classify. The report flagged it as an anomaly. Filed, archived, ignored. By the third loss, someone noticed. Grand Arbiter Thean stood in the observation chamber as data scrolled past his four eyes. "Show me the pattern," he ordered. His analysts hesitated. "There isn't one said carefully. "Different regions, different ship classes, no common tactical profile." Thean narrowed his eyes. "That is a pattern. Across Concord space, ships were vanishing. Not fleets, not formations. Individual vessels. Just enough to be unsettling. Not enough to justify panic. That was the brilliance of it. Humanity wasn't attacking the Concord. They were editing it." On the bridge of the Spite of Terra, Admiral Yuki Tanaka watched the tactical display with calm precision. "Next window," she asked. 37 seconds, her navigation officer replied. "Fire." The weapon that wasn't a weapon activated. Space folded inward around a distant patrol ship. For a fraction of a second, the universe tried to correct itself. Then it failed. The ship collapsed. Gone. No explosion. No trace. Yuki exhaled slowly. "Move us," she said. "They still don't see us." The Concord escalated cautiously. Additional patrols were dispatched. Sensor arrays were recalibrated. Analysts searched for sabotage, mechanical failures, natural phenomena. Nothing fit. Ships continued to vanish. One every hour. Then 2. Then 5. Still no battles. Still no enemy. Just absence. Panic crept in sideways. A Cerather commander ordered his fleet to regroup for safety. 2 ships vanished during the maneuver. A Valkyrie defense station powered up experimental scanners. The station itself disappeared mid-scan. Not destroyed. Removed. The galaxy blinked. And when it opened its eyes, the Concord was bleeding. "This is impossible," Commander Vexel said, his voice tight. "We would detect any weapon capable of—" Thean raised a claw. "They are not using a weapon," he said slowly. "They are using assumption." Silence followed. Across the galaxy, something else was happening. Human workers stopped asking permission. Mining crews paused operations. Maintenance teams delayed repairs. Factories slowed by single-digit percentages. Nothing dramatic. Nothing punishable. But when combined across thousands of systems, the effect was catastrophic. Production chains stalled. Supply routes misaligned. Infrastructure hiccuped. The Concord's vast machine began to stutter. And still no enemy appeared. The first open engagement happened by accident. A Modoc assault carrier stumbled into the gravitational shadow of a human ship during an unscheduled maneuver. For the first time, Concord sensors saw something. A distortion. A void where space behaved incorrectly. The MODOK commander didn't hesitate. Fire. Plasma lanced into darkness. The shots curved, bent, vanished. Then space answered. The assault carrier collapsed inward, crushed by forces it had never evolved to understand. Its final transmission was a single word. Impossible. That word spread faster than any distress signal. Emergency summits were called. Border systems sealed themselves off. Entire fleets were ordered to stand down, afraid to move. The Concorde had ruled the galaxy for 40,000 years by knowing where everything was. Now, they didn't know where anything was. On 1,000 worlds, humans watched, not cheering, not celebrating, just watching. The ones who cleaned Concorde halls, the ones who mined Concorde resources, the ones who had waited their entire lives for this moment. The galaxy had blinked, and humanity had moved. Admiral Tanaka stood alone on the bridge, staring at the tactical map. "We could keep doing this," her first officer said. "Bleed them slowly. Let fear finish the job." Yuki nodded. "Yes," she said, "but fear alone doesn't end empires." She straightened. "It makes them desperate." Far away, Grand Arbiter Thean finally understood. This wasn't conquest. This wasn't rebellion. This was a lesson. Humanity was showing the Concorde something fundamental. Power didn't come from size, or age, or tradition. It came from adaptation. And the Concorde had stopped adapting long ago. Thean issued the order no arbiter had spoken in millennia. "Recall all fleets," he said. "Lock down all systems. Prepare for negotiation." The word tasted bitter. On the spite of Terra, alarms chimed softly. Multiple Concorde fleets retreating. Reported navigation. Yuki closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them. "Good," she said. "Now they're ready to listen." She looked out at the stars. Quiet, vast, indifferent. "The galaxy blinked," she whispered. "And we were already moving." The Concorde had always believed that empires ended in fire. Their historians taught that civilizations collapsed under bombardment, rebellion, or famine. That power was lost violently, stripped away by enemies who replaced one throne with another. They were wrong. The Concorde did not fall in flames. It fell in silence. The emergency summit chamber on Axiom Prime was filled for the first time in centuries. 12 Grand Arbiters sat in a circle of living crystal, their bodies adorned with the symbols of power accumulated over 40,000 years. Around them, aides and commanders whispered, transmitted, recalculated. Every report was worse than the last. Entire patrol regions abandoned, supply routes unusable, shipyards inert, production worlds stalled. No enemy fleet detected, no territory claimed, no demands issued. The Concorde was bleeding and did not know what a blade was. Grand Arbiter Thean broke the silence. "We are not at war," he said slowly. "We are being corrected." None of the others disagreed. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the Spite of Terra, watching Axiom Prime grow larger in the forward display. The ship was visible now, deliberately so. Human engineers had relaxed the absorption fields just enough for Concorde sensors to register something impossible, an object that existed where no mass should be. "We're being watched," her first officer said. Yuki nodded. "Good." Behind her, the crew worked without ceremony. No cheers, no celebration. This moment had been waited for too long to waste on emotion. "Open all channels," Yuki said. "They've earned the courtesy." The chamber lights flickered, then stabilized. A human face appeared in the center of the crystal ring. No armor, no weapons, no throne, just a woman in a plain uniform, eyes steady, posture relaxed. "Grand Arbiters," Yuki Tanaka said calmly. "My name is Admiral Tanaka. I am here to speak for humanity." A MODOK arbiter snarled. "You have committed acts of war." "No," Yuki interrupted gently. "We have demonstrated consequences." Silence followed. "You ruled the galaxy for 40,000 years," Yuki continued. You believed that time itself made you inevitable. That age was authority. That survival meant superiority. She paused. You mistook endurance for wisdom. Theon leaned forward. You have power now. Enough to threaten us. Enough to destroy what we built. Is that why you came? Yuki shook her head. If we wanted you gone, she said, you wouldn't be here to ask that question. The chamber stirred uneasily. Yuki continued. We were conquered in 3 days. Enslaved for 70 years. Studied, cataloged, processed. Her voice did not shake. You took our sky, our worlds, our future. She looked around the circle. And in doing so, you taught us. You taught us how your systems work, how your fleets move, how your power depends on people you stop seeing. She gestured slightly. You built an empire that assumed obedience was permanent. Her eyes hardened. Humans do not forget. Arbiter Krex of the Modoc leaned forward. Then say it. Say what you want. Yuki nodded. We want our worlds returned. Earth and every human colony. No reaction. We want every human released from forced labor. Some shifted. We want recognition. Sovereignty. The same protections any Concord member enjoys. A murmur spread. And Yuki added quietly, we want guarantees that this will never happen again. Theon studied her. And if we refuse? Yuki's expression did not change. Then the Concord will continue to shrink, she said. Quietly, precisely, until there is nothing left to govern. She tilted her head. You've already seen how that ends. The silence stretched. For the first time in the Concord's history, its rulers understood something terrifying. This enemy did not crave conquest, did not seek revenge, did not even demand submission. They simply refused to kneel. The Serather Arbiter spoke next, voice low. If we agree, what does humanity do? Yuki considered the question. Exactly what we've always done, she said. We build, we explore, we argue among ourselves. We make mistakes. We improve. A faint smile touched her lips. We live. Theon closed his eyes. He had ruled for nearly 1,000 years. He had watched species rise and vanish. He had believed, truly believed, that the Concord was the final form of civilization. Now he saw the flaw. The Concord survived by freezing the galaxy in place. Humanity survived by moving. The Concord will agree, Theon said at last. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Earth and all human territories will be restored. Forced labor will end. Humanity will be recognized as sovereign. He met Yuki's gaze. And the Concord will remember this day. Yuki inclined her head. That, she said, is all we wanted. The transmission ended. The chamber remained silent long after the human image vanished. They all understood what had happened. The Concord had not been defeated. It had been outgrown. On Earth, the sky was clear. For the first time in 70 years, no alien ships hovered above the clouds. Children born into chains watched sunlight touch the ground without obstruction. Old men and women wept openly. No speeches were made. No flags raised. Freedom arrived not with celebration, but with quiet disbelief. Admiral Tanaka stood alone once more on the bridge of the Spite of Terra. The ship would soon be decommissioned, not destroyed, retired. A reminder, not a threat. Her first officer approached. Orders, Admiral? Yuki looked at the stars. So many places left unexplored, she said softly. Set course for home. As the ship turned away from Axiom Prime, the galaxy adjusted. Empires recalculated. Borders softened. Assumptions shattered. And somewhere deep in the data vaults of the Concord, a new doctrine was recorded, not as law, as warning. Never mistake silence for weakness. Never assume submission means surrender. Never give humanity time and chains, because humans do not rush. They endure. They adapt. They wait. And when they rise, they do not take the throne. They remove the idea that one ever existed.